Hey tea heads, this is Don and Halter from Mayleaf. Welcome to episode 4 of our Foundations of Tea series. In the first episode, Halter, we talked about the plant. In the second episode, we talked about the producer. In the third episode, we talked about all of the sort of intricacies of brewing parameters.
Yeah.
And now it all comes together here, and you are going to be making tea for me today. It all comes here. We are going to be doing, in this episode, a step-by-step, very practical guide of how to do Gong Fu Tea. And it's important to note from the outset that some people call this a tea ceremony. Mm-hmm. This is not a ceremony. Okay. Japan has a tea ceremony because of its roots in Buddhism. Mm-hmm. It has a lot more sort of symbolism in the ceremony. Right. With Gong Fu Tea, it's always important to remember that the primary purpose is using skill and discipline to make the best tea possible for yourself and your guests.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so function is at the top of the list. The function is making the best tea possible.
Right.
Okay. So understanding the leaf and sort of using your instinct and sort of becoming one with the leaf and making the best tea possible. Okay. But because of that, because it requires that focus, because it requires your presence, because of all these things, it can become a little bit ceremonial, or it could seem that way because there's a sort of composure to it, right? But that's not to say that you can't take these sort of step-by-step guide and simplify it, make it something very informal, all the way to very elaborate, very formal setups. And we'll talk about the sort of different types of setups a little bit. But the point is, number one function is make the best tea possible.
Got it. Okay,
that's the skill. And Gong Fu Tea means preparing tea with skill and discipline.
Right, okay.
Like Gong Fu means like Kung Fu, it's skill and discipline.
Okay,
right?
Got it.
Okay, so in order to do Gong Fu Tea, what we're going to do today is we're going to break it down. I'm going to first of all talk about the bits of gear that you need, the equipment that you need, right? And we'll go from the most simple to the more elaborate, okay? And then we'll dive into exactly how you do it, and you can show me your Guy 1 skills.
My non-existent Guy 1 skills, can't wait.
I'm sure you've been practicing. You had your homework, right?
Last minute as always, but never mind.
Okay, burnt fingers ahead. Okay, so let's dive into the equipment that you need. It looks a bit complicated, this setup here. You don't need everything here.
Okay, it looks pretty though, so...
Well, yes, it's important that your tea stage, which is called a cha shi, tea stage.
Cha shi.
Cha is tea.
Cha shi.
Cha shi, so everything that you'll hear about is related to cha, right? So cha shi is your tea stage.
Okay.
And basically it means how it looks, right? But for gear, what you need, the essential things you need a kettle.
Yep.
Right? So we've got a kettle here. You need something to brew your leaves in.
Yeah.
So either a Guy 1.
Yeah.
Guy 1 just means lidded bowl.
Oh, okay, that's what it means. Okay.
Or a pot.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got different pots, you've got different clays, and you can go through all of the complex intricacies of which clay suits which tea, etc., etc. I've done masterclass videos about that. And it's important to note that in this, I'm not going to talk too much about all the different theory because I've done lots of masterclasses. Yeah. This is more about step-by-step following a guide.
Brilliant. Okay? This is what I need the most.
Okay, right. Okay, good. So you need either a Guy 1 or a pot.
Fine.
Okay? So that's the first thing you need. Yeah. The second thing you need is this. This is called a gong dao bei, also known as a fairness pitcher. Gong dao bei sort of roughly translates as a vessel that's about justice, a justice vessel. Okay. So the idea being that when you brew in a pot or a Guy 1, if you pour directly from here into a tea cup, then you're going to give uneven brews to your guests, right? Some people, unless you're very, very skilled, and there is another method of Gong Fu brewing called Chaozhou style brewing. I'll put a link in the description below. We're not talking about Chaozhou style brewing. This is the sort of more official Gong Fu style, or the more common Gong Fu style. So the purpose of this is that you pour or you decant your tea from your brewing vessel into here. It evens out the brew. Everyone gets to taste the same tea.
Nice.
Okay, so those two are obviously essential bits of kit. The next, obviously, essential bit of kit is a teacup. Okay? Yeah. But note that the teacup is small. The reason why it's small is because the purpose of Gong Fu Tea is not to quench thirst, it's for taste.
Right.
Right? And so in order to taste, you want small sipping cups.
Okay.
The reason for that is it controls the temperature better, right? If you have a very hot, large mug, then and you fill it with a large body of hot water or hot tea, it's going to take a long time to cool down. You're not going to be able to taste it properly.
Yes.
This way, it cools down quite quickly and you can drink your tea and you can sip your tea and you don't feel like you have to sort of, gulp down your tea, right? So it's all about tasting small shots of tea, right? So pot, cup, gong dao bei, those are essentials.
Okay.
I also think it is essential that you have this. This is called a cha jin or a cloth.
Okay.
Right? And the purpose of a cloth is obvious. Wipe up your spills. And some people would say, oh, it's not essential. But you know what? There's going to inevitably be some spills, right? And it's always good, like when you serve your guests, as we'll see, to wipe, the bottom of the gong dao bei or the pot. A cloth is very, very important. I would class it as essential.
Okay. Do you use it always, mostly?
Always have a cloth.
Okay,
I always have a cloth. And usually you sort of keep it on your lap or you keep it somewhere. The brewer is usually in charge of the cloth because you wipe your fingers on it, because your fingers get wet. Basically, there's going to be a lot of sort of water flying around here. You want to have a way of mopping it up.
Right, okay.
So a cha jin or a tea cloth, I would say these 4 items are absolutely essential. The next thing is, because you're pouring water around, you need to figure out a way to pour away the wastewater. All right. So you can have what we have here, which is called a char pan or a water tray. Essentially, it's obvious, right? There's a tray here that collects water, and as you pour water, the water drains into it.
I always wonder, why are these designs like these, for example?
Well, that's my design.
This is our design. Okay.
This is Morse code.
Right. Okay.
And it has a phrase, which is here. Tea is a timeless voyage. Enriching us with the majesty of the moment, brew with reverence, taste with passion.
Oh,
that's what
I like
it says
that.
here.
Very nice.
So that's, but you get different designs, right?
Okay.
We've also got this one here, and this is our Gong Fu vessel, which is a smaller footprint.
Yeah.
And we've all got one in between, which is called our Gong Fu satellite, which is sort of in between.
Okay.
So you've got different char pans.
Yeah.
So different water trays, different sizes, depending on whether or not you're having a big session or you're having a small session.
So would you use that if you're doing it just for yourself?
When I brew solo, this is my go-to,
Right,
Because I basically put all of this on here. That's it, I'm done.
Perfect.
And then I can sit, do my work, and I can have that here.
Nice.
But if you were having a larger session, you'd have this, and you can double it up. You can have like these epic sessions where you have this, and you can, depending, you can have tea parties, obviously, right? But a char pan it's not essential, because you could do what's called a dry brewing, which is taking this away and just brewing on a table or on a cloth, right? But if you do that, then you need a bowl. So the great thing about this vessel is it doubles up. So you could not throw away, but put away your lid, and you can use this as a bowl. So you can still pour away wastewater, but you can brew on the flat table.
Right.
And that's a more sort of skilled way of brewing, because it's all about making sure you don't spill.
Right, okay.
So that takes a lot of concentration, and that's sort of part of the joy and the beauty of watching a dry session, is that every drop counts, right? You take a little bit more care to make sure that you're just a little bit more focused, right? Whereas on a char pan, you can be a little bit more, free.
Okay.
Yeah. So a char pan is not essential. It's either a char pan or it's doing it dry, but you need to get yourself a bowl. And you can just use a bowl. You can use any bowl. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't have to be some clay bowl, right?
Okay.
So you can keep it relatively simple. So a simple setup would be a pot, a gong dao bei, a cup, and a bowl.
Okay.
Right? That would be the most simple setup. So those are your absolute essentials. You can't do Gong Fu Tea without those. Everything else you see around are flourishes.
Okay.
Okay? So let's go through some of the flourishes. For example, if you were going to do a dry setup, then you might want what's called a TBoat, which just puts your pot on, right? So basically that allows you to make a little bit of spilling here.
Okay.
Right? So it's sort of like halfway, right, between going on a full char pan where you can just sort of brew freely. Yeah. This is like if you were brewing dry, you could have this just on the table, but a lot of people like to give the pot a little bit of a stage.
Okay, right.
Where you kind of can pour water, and you can pour water over the pot and it collects it.
Why would you put water over the pot?
Because you want to maintain temperature. We're going to talk about that, but essentially pouring water over the pot, especially because clay keeps heat well, but it takes a lot of heat to bring it to temperature, right? So you want to always make sure that you're pouring water over it, keep it hot. So, but it's not a lot. It's just sort of a little dousing of water, so you're not collecting a huge amount of water. But then once it's collected, you can always pour it into your this is called a gen shui, your wastewater bowl. Okay.
And so you'd have your tea and everything else in a flat surface in this.
Yeah. So in essence, I can show you, but basically, if you could pick that up, it's kind of heavy. You can pick up this tray. You can put this down here like that, right? You could have it like this. You know?
Yeah.
And you could have it very, very sort of simple. You could, put a coaster on like that, and it looks very pretty.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people like this sort of very simple setup versus the Char Pan, right? So that's something that is not necessary, but an added extra. The other thing since we're looking at it, is this. This is called a chabu. This is basically a cloth or a runner, and you can get different ones. You can get ones that are like this, right? That go across the whole table. This is sort of our weird, crazy psychedelic design.
I love it.
With the mad birds and stuff. But you can basically have that. It's not necessary. You could just go onto the table if you wanted. But a lot of people like having some sort of stage, some sort of setup. This could be a piece of wood, like you could get some nice driftwood, but basically you are setting up the stage, right? And a runner or a chabu is sort of something that people like to have. Okay, do you want to put that back up there? Cool. Okay, and the next thing is this, right? Again, not essential, but often people like it, a strainer. So it means that when you are pouring your tea from your gaiwan or your pot, you're just filtering out any little bits. Again, it's not essential. You can brew Gong Fu tea without it, but a lot of people would say that that's very commonly seen in a Gong Fu setup. Another thing that's very commonly seen in a Gong Fu setup are tea tools like this, right? These are Gong Fu stems. So the purpose is to pick up cups, for example, like this. So you're not touching somebody else's cup because they're going to be drinking from it, so it's sort of considered polite to hold it like that. You can also pick leaves from the pot and look at them or whatever, so you're not touching. You've also got this, which is basically a way of moving the leaves around, so dry leaves can be moved into the pot, so you can take a scoop and move it into the pot. Right?
Oh, okay, got it.
So moving the dry leaves around.
Right.
This is a little nifty little way of serving tea, right? So you've got a little thing like that. It's a little tea collar, a cup collar. So, tea tools like this are generally, you would usually see it in a setup.
Right.
Okay. So that's another thing that's also something that people like to have. If you are brewing, I've shown you the scoop already. So this is a way of presenting your tea, right?
Is that all the purpose that it has? It's just like making it look...
It's a way of presenting it, and it also has a nice sort of scoop sort of shape to allow you to move it into the gaiwan, right? So it's a nice way of doing it, and you can get different ones. You can get pieces of curved wood, and you can get all sorts of different sort of scoops as well, right? So these are all things that a lot of people will have in their Gong Fu collection. If you are breaking up cakes... Oops, sorry. If you're breaking up cakes, then you would normally have an inspection tray, which allows you to sort of break up the cakes and not let the leaves sort of go everywhere.
And have a cigar.
This is a tea knife here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is also called a chadao, and that's to break up the cake.
Okay.
Right? So these are things that would be considered essential if you are brewing tea cakes.
Okay.
Right? But it's not essential if you're brewing just sort of loose leaf tea. So those are other elements that you might want to involve in your tea setup. We talked about the coasters as well here, right? So if you wanted to serve on coasters, that's always a nice way to sort of, serve to guests as well.
Lovely.
Okay. So you've got all of, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And then you've got these.
My favorite is so cute.
Yeah, so these are called cha chong or tea pets.
Yeah.
And the purpose of a tea pet is, you're going to be pouring away tea rinse, you're going to be pouring away water, you're going to be pouring away maybe the sort of ends of tea, like before you're sort of brewing your next infusion, and why pour it away when you can offer it to a little guest? Right. So teapots are cute and sort of serve a function of, you know, offering.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can get more religious ones, so you can get Buddhas. People can sort of treat it a little bit more with reverence, or you can sort of keep it quite cute.
Yeah.
Again, this is the point. The Gong Fu Tea service or Gong Fu Brewing is personal. You set it up as you want, and that's sort of the joy of it. You can sort of play around, you know, and you can sort of you can personalize it from session to session. One last thing is this. This is called a smelling cup. Okay, so it's not often used. It's something that they use more in Taiwan.
Okay.
So instead of just drinking from a cup, what you do is you fill the tea into here.
Yeah.
You put the cup on, and then you flip this over, right? And then all the tea is up in here.
Yeah.
And when you take this off, you can then smell. And because it's got a long shape, the shape is going to hold the aroma for longer, and so you can pick up the aroma of the tea and then drink.
Okay.
So that's another element. You may want to incorporate smelling cups into your setup.
So, and that's probably for teas that's most like have the strongest smell.
Yeah, and in Taiwan it's very common because they brew oolongs a lot, right? So it's very sort of aromatic teas.
Okay.
So those are all of the different things that you can pick up, but the essentials, as we said, is a vessel to brew your tea, a gong dao bei, a cup, a chajin, some sort of towel, and some way of collecting the water, either a char pan or a waste water bowl, also known as a jian shui. Everything else here is for you to add your flourishes. And then, of course, you can set up your cha shi or tea stage as you want. You could add flowers, you could add, you know, some people love to really take their time to set up a tea stage. And it might be because they're doing it for themselves or for guests. You know, they know a guest is coming over, they're going to set up a nice thing. Maybe you have like a little vase and a flower. Maybe you have something of nature. You have like a little rock, or you know, just sort of you can elaborate as much as you want, but never forget that the primary purpose is to make good tea.
Okay. Fine.
And that's one of the things that I sort of, you know, you've always got to remind yourself, because sometimes you can get so caught up in the, oh, this is cute and all the rest of it, and then you sort of forget that your aim and your focus is to make the best tea possible, right?
What if you're outside in nature, for example? Would you need a table to put everything in? Could you put it on the grass?
You could put this directly on the grass. I do that a lot, right? So you can just have that. You can, if you're in nature, one of the great things is you don't need a char pan, right? Nature is your char pan. So you can essentially brew on, sometimes people find rocks, like nice flat rocks, and just set their teaware up on that, and they can set a beautiful chashi, beautiful tea stage in nature, and sometimes it's actually the most beautiful, right?
I remember at your wedding, that's what you did.
Yeah, exactly.
That was amazing.
So you can set it up as you wish, right? So let's talk a little bit about chashi, the tea stage, right? So as I said, the most important thing is the making the best tea. So it should all center around, what tea am I brewing?
Okay.
Right? What am I brewing here? Like, is it an oolong? Is it a dark oolong? Maybe you're adapting the cha shi colors according to the color of the tea.
Okay.
But you want the tea to be the star of the show. You don't want it to be sort of like, oh, look at that beautiful setup. You want the tea to be the star of the show. So the first consideration is, what is the tea I'm brewing? You know? And
then what do you think after that?
And then you think, okay, so what tea am I brewing? Therefore, which teaware do I want? Some teaware clay, like this dueni, suits certain tea types. So you wouldn't bring this out. It would be very weird if somebody brought that out and brewed green tea. It would show that they don't. Then they're more focused on the aesthetic rather than the tea.
Why wouldn't this be
because
green tea?
Green tea doesn't work well in clay in general. In this type of clay, the heat retention is too high, and then it keeps the tea too hot, and it can stew the tea. Plus, the minerals in the clay don't interact well with green tea. Obviously, these are generalizations. You brew it as you want to brew, but always important, the tea is the purpose, right? So you're not going to start elaborating or choosing teaware that doesn't match with the tea, right? But then you've got to also think about, are you brewing by yourself or are you brewing for guests? And who are those guests and what do you want to show them, right? So this is where you can start to bring some more symbolism into your Gong Fu setup.
Yeah.
You can start to think about the weather. You can start to think about, you know, incorporating bits of nature. A lot of people like to sort of bring in 5 elements in. So there's wood, there's rock. The fire obviously comes from the heat. If you're brewing, some people like to brew over charcoal, like heat their water over charcoal, over fire. So you can start to incorporate nature. You could, you know, that's totally up to you. You have free reign to express yourself.
But what might you want to show a guest? You mentioned like.
Well, maybe you are wanting it to be a very sort of fun, social, you know, session.
Yeah.
And that would probably let you'd pick different teaware. You'd probably have this tea run a little bit more crazy.
Okay.
You would, you know, you can sort of stylize it. Or it might be that you want more of a sort of calm, still session. Maybe your friend or whoever is somebody that you don't know or you know them and they're stressed out and you want to give them a very calm, peaceful session.
So what would you do in that case?
Well, you might have a more simple setup. It might be more dry style, where you just kind of like everything has a certain minimal look to it, or you know, this is personal choice. It's like choosing your wardrobe. Everyone's going to have a different way of doing it. The point here is that the possibilities are endless. As long as you focus on tea is the number one priority. Yeah.
So, for example, if you want to have it like a chilled vibe, then what kind of tea would you have for that, or is it does the tea come first? Like, can
absolutely.
Okay.
The vibe is like what do you know that the vibe is going to be what comes first. It's like what do you want to express in this session? Yeah. And then you would pick the tea accordingly, and then you would work around that.
Okay.
But you know, the point here is to take your time if you are going for that more elaborate setup, and just sort of tinker with it, and then sit on the side of the guest and see what the guest sees and all the rest of it. But you know, we are talking about like very elaborate things. For the most part, most people are going to be breaking out their Gong Fu vessel, this one here, boom, 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 and brewing their tea. But I think it's very, very important that before you start your Gong Fu session, that you take your time to make sure you've got everything. Because one of the things that's annoying is, I forgot this, I forgot that, and it breaks up your session, right? So take the time to set everything out, check you've got everything, look at your environment, you know, do I need to sort of switch off the TV or put some other music on or whatever it might be. Again, you don't have to do this, but I think that it's worth doing it to get the most out of your session. Is you want to, you know, think about what session you want to have and make sure that you set it up accordingly. Another thing that's important, and it looks chaos now, and we'll clear this out and set it up properly, is that you don't make it haphazard or cluttered so that you're having to cross over your arms and reach out. You want to ideally, as the brewer, be very much sort of, your movements should be minimal, right? And effortless, right? And that usually means not crossing, because you cross, you break things and it's a mess, right? So have everything set up so that your movements can be as minimal as possible. And that's not because of, you should be still and quiet and, you know, you should be have reverence. Really? It's more about like, you don't want to be stressed, and, you know, it's about, you know, you being, if you're calm, the guests are calm, and everything is good. Now, it's worth me saying, if you look at my videos, it's chaos, right? But that's, you know, don't follow my example on that, right? Like when I do setups and I'm not filming, it's not this chaotic. Like I've
experienced it.
Get my setup ready.
It's definitely not chaotic.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, get yourself ready. You know, get the setup ready. So let's clear this down and let's get a setup together, and then you can start brewing. Okay,
great.
Okay, so we've got our setup here. Holter has been practicing with her Gaiwan, so we're going to focus on the Gaiwan. So we got a Gaiwan, we're keeping it relatively simple. We're brewing Milanxiang Dancong, so this is our Royal Peach Orchid, so this is an oolong tea. Okay. So the first thing.
What kind of vibe is oolong tea?
What kind of vibe is oolong? Oolong tea is very aromatic.
Okay.
And it sort of is quite enchanting and sort of brings you into the present and the space through its aroma. It's quite sort of entrancing.
Yeah.
But it's not got a huge caffeine hit, although Dansong is a little bit stronger than most. So it's not like, you know, party time.
Okay.
Right? But, you know, to each their own. So everyone has a different reaction. Okay, so we've got the Char Pan, we've got a Char Bu, so we've got our tea cloth here, we've got the Gong Fu Code, we've got cups, we've got Gong Dao Bei, we've got the 100ml Gai Wan. We brought out the coasters, so we'll be a little bit more sophisticated in our drinking. And you've got a tea scoop with your tea, and then you've got your tea pet, right? So everything is here, we've got everything we need, we're not gonna have to get up. So the first thing to focus on is you, okay?
What about me?
So, in order to get the most out of tea, you need to be present.
Okay.
Okay?
Focus.
And so it's worth just taking a second or 5 seconds ideally, and just sort of give yourself the permission to forget all your worldly worries.
Yeah.
All those other things, all the noise.
Okay.
You are now going to focus on the tea and brew the best tea that you possibly can, right? And just without like fear or competition, it's just you are giving this to yourself now, right? And so you've got to come at it with that intention. And I'm not trying to be sort of too sort of frilly about this, but it makes a big difference if you brew mindlessly, then you're not going to get the best out of the tea. And just having that intention at the beginning is very important. Turn off your phones, maybe turn it down the volume, but just be here. Okay. So I think a lot of people sort of dive into a Gong Fu. What am I doing? What am I doing? And they don't take that time. Okay. Right. Next up, what you would do is you would look at the tea. Because this is the most important thing, right? We're focusing on the tea. So you'd show your guests the tea or just look at the tea, and that will give you some insight as to how to brew, right? I'm not expecting you to just go, oh, I know how to brew this. I'll talk you through that. But, you know, as you get to know tea, you'll know, okay, it's a darker oolong, therefore it can take hotter temperature. You know, it's a loose strip oolong. It's not ball rolled, therefore the steeping times are not going to be too much, you know, we're probably talking 15-20 seconds. So you start to sort of gather some information about what you're going to brew, but also it gives you an opportunity, you can use your tea tools to just sort of look at the leaves, give you that sort of direct lineage back to the field, and sort of look at, you know, this was picked by hand by somebody and processed, and it just sort of gives you that focus of like, I am giving the attention that these leaves deserve, and you can look at the color, and we call this in our 10-step tasting eyes dry leaf, right? So you're using your eyes to look at the dry leaf and sort of assess the quality, what it looks like. Maybe you can talk about it with your guests if you wanted to. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. Then once you've done that, you can put the tea aside. So I'm going to try to not touch too many things and just allow you to get on with it. And now we're bringing our tea vessel front and center. And we are also getting our cups ready. So what we'll do is we'll put the cups here, because you're going to be wanting to serve in front of you, right? It's a bit awkward because we're next to each other. Normally, if we were drinking together, I'd be on this side, so she would serve this way. So we can't do that here. Right, now the next thing we need to do is called awakening the tea set. Right, so that means heating it up, essentially. So take some hot water.
It's been warmed up already.
Yeah, so if you take the lid and just fill up that Gai Wan.
Up to?
Well, it's up to you, but I tend to sort of go a bit higher than that, but that's, you know, it depends on how brave you are in terms of your skills. We'll stick it there. And also pour some into the cups as well.
Okay.
Right? So we're just warming up the cups.
Fill them up?
You don't have to fill them up, but just sort of bring them up to sort of halfway. And this is where a good pouring kettle helps.
Right.
Okay. You can do the Gong Dao Bei as well. But basically, we're warming up the teaware. Okay. And the purpose of warming up the teaware is to just sort of make sure that when the leaf hits the teaware, you're starting to get those aromatics and everything. You can also, in China, they would start they would clean the cups in front of you, and that's when they use very small little cups, and they'll use tweezers, and they'll take this and they'll dip it into this cup and they'll spin it. It's a sort of it's a thing in China. You can't do that with these cups, and the reason why they do that is to show the guests
it's clean.
It's clean.
So, okay.
Right? So take it as red.
Yeah.
These are clean.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you
That's
wanted to,
important.
you could sort of show that.
Okay.
So in China, they like to show
Okay.
it's clean.
Okay, get
Okay.
that.
Okay, so now what you're going to do is pour from the Gaiwan into the Gong Dao Bei.
Yep. Do I need to do the...
Well, the only way you can, which is, yeah, well done. Try not to twist too much, otherwise it might burn your thumb. Okay, now immediately, because this is hot,
Yeah.
you want to put the leaves in. So take the scoop and then take this little tool here.
This?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Lift it up, you can put that down, yeah, and just scoop that in. Okay, you can put that to the side.
Okay.
And now we go to the next step in our 10-step tasting, which is nose dry leaf, smelling the dry leaf. So normally you'd present it.
Smell the dry leaf?
Yeah, because it's now a hot Gaiwan.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
go ahead.
Do I, as the host, have
Normally, but like I want you to smell it
to...
first.
Okay, fine.
Normally you'd present it.
Wow. Ah, very nutty.
We're not doing tasting. That's next. That's next one. So you don't have to have any pressure on tasting.
Okay, good.
Right. Okay, so now you've
amazing.
smelt the dry leaf. Everyone else has smelt the dry leaf, and you can take some time to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. You can spend as long as you want, and if this water cools down, you can always put more water in here to sort of heat it up again.
Okay.
Right. So don't feel under pressure.
Yeah.
To rush this stage.
Okay.
Okay. Now you have here water that needs to be offered to your tea pet.
Oh,
Okay. So
nice.
now you can take
Right.
your tea pet. Yeah.
Okay.
And pour the water over the tea pet.
I like this part. Yep.
And you can pour the cup.
So,
up.
okay, so we warm everything up, not just...
Yeah, you warm everything up. So normally you would use tweezers for this, right?
Oh, okay.
If you wanted to be very formal.
Yeah, I guess it's cleaner, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But you don't, to go all the way in, go all the way in.
All the way
yeah.
in.
And then just, yeah, exactly. So that's, you don't have to do it formally if you're with friends. It's fine, you don't have to, right?
Okay.
So now everything's warmed up, right?
Yeah.
Now we're going to go to the next stage. So we've awakened the tea set. It's all awake and the leaves are giving off their aroma. Now we're going to do the rinse, okay? So the pet goes back, right? Because you want to make sure you know where you're going to be pouring. You can move these to the side a little bit just so that you've got that direct angle, right?
Okay.
And now you're going to pour some water in here. So the best thing to do is hold the Gaiwan lid with your other hand. So you've got it ready, and then just pour, and then
fill it.
you don't have to fill it, sort of as long as the leaves are getting wet, that's good.
Okay.
Put the lid back on, and now immediately you're going to pour that away. Into the Gong Dao Bei.
Into?
This one here. The fairness picture. Okay. Okay, now we are going to the next stage in our 10-step tasting, which is nose wet leaf. Okay, so now you can smell the wet leaf. I can already get so much aroma here.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a very aromatic tea.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And you can pour this tea, rinse, into the tea cups, again, just to warm everything up.
Oh, okay, so we're not...
You're not
nothing's going to waste.
Yeah, and you're just using it to warm everything up.
Yeah.
Anything left over can go on the tea pet if you want to.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I put this on the teapot anyway?
No, leave that so that's staying warm,
Yeah.
right? Now, so we're smelling, right? So I'm smelling
It's amazing.
amazing smell.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is now that the leaves have been hydrated, we don't like to leave wet leaves with a cover on. Because it sort of steams, and sort of that steams can be a bit musty, right? So when we are not brewing, we leave it off.
Okay.
Okay, so you're smelling, you can smell like this, but once you put it back down, the lid goes here.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so now we've gone through eyes dry leaf, we've gone through nose dry leaf, we've gone through nose wet leaf, we've woken up our teaware, everything is warm and aromas are starting to flow. Now this can take half an hour. You can spend ages smelling those leaves, right? There's no rush. All right, now we want to check our water temperature. What does it say? Push the red button.
75.
Okay, so push that, the far left yellow button. Far left, yeah. Right, we need to heat that water up. So we want to bring it up to about 95 degrees.
Okay.
So obviously water needs to be at the right temperature. Now sometimes, as I said, some people will have a charcoal, you know, and they'll be boiling the water like that.
How will they know that it's 90?
That's where you really use your instinct.
Okay.
You know, and that's sort of part of the joy of not having a kettle.
Okay.
Is that it, again, forces your focus.
Yeah, but you need to be really experienced to be able to.
Yeah, but you know, you can only be experienced by doing it.
Yeah.
So you will be inexperienced and do it as well in order to get to that point. Getting the water temperature is right, and some people prefer fire compared to electricity. They think it has a better quality of water. All of that. Okay. So now we're going to do our brew.
So what? Sorry, what percent? What Celsius?
95.
Okay.
Something like that. Where are we at now?
93.
Okay, so that's fine.
Click the red button.
Yeah, push it twice. Okay, so now you are going to be pouring out your tea rinse.
Yeah.
Again, you can use
my pet?
It's up to you, but the pet's there for a reason. So the pet always gets to drink before you do, basically.
Why is that? Just part of the...
Just that's the way it works with the process. The pig blows bubbles out of his nose. See that bubble?
Oh my god!
Okay.
Love it.
All right. So now we are brewing, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. You lift up the lid.
Yeah. Okay. And is there any? How high should I be going?
Very good question. So the given sort of wisdom is you do high water, low tea. Right, what that means is when you're pouring it over the leaves, you go quite high, so you get some movement in there.
Okay.
But when you're pouring to the gaiwan, you stay low.
Okay.
Because you don't want too much oxygen entering the tea.
Okay.
Right? Now,
what about the teapot?
Sorry, what do you mean?
When it's the thing is in the tea.
Yeah, you lift the lid and you pour quite high into it.
Okay.
Now, you've got to make a decision. Are you going to be using a filter or not?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're going to be using a filter, before you start pouring, you would put the filter over, right?
Fine.
Okay, now we do our
quite
pouring.
High.
Quite high. And where you pour is very important, like depending upon the tea. So you can pour directly on the leaves or on the rim, and these are all master classes that I've done already, so I'm not going to talk you through
It's very bubbly. Is that because of the way I've poured it?
No, those are the natural pectins in the tea, so you put the lid on.
Yeah.
Now, some people like to pour very high and scrape those bubbles off. Okay. But there's no need to do that.
Fine.
Okay. So now we're waiting sort of 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. How your hands are, very good. This is all about, this is the way it is. That when you're doing a tea session, generally when you're not using your hands, they should be still. It's all again about centering. Okay. Right. So either down on the table or in your lap.
Grounded, I guess.
Grounded, exactly. Now you need to get your cloth ready because you're going to be, when you serve, you should wipe your cloth. No, you can leave it there. I'm just saying.
But when I serve, I wipe.
You should wipe the cups, but because these cups are still have a bit of water underneath them.
Oh, okay.
All right, so it's ready now. So pour the tea.
Okay.
Yep. Bit harder when it's hot water with leaves, but that's good. Good. That's a strong brew. Now make sure you get every drop out.
Oh, that's quite a lot left.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You can now turn your wrist like, you can sort of get it out. Okay.
Okay.
Go one down.
Yeah.
Lid off. Right, remember? Always goes back. Okay.
Oh, I'm just gonna smell it.
Yeah, have a sniff. Now, that's going to be a strong brew, I can tell already. Okay, so take the filter and put it back.
Can you tell because of the colour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now you're ready to serve, right? So low pour into the Gong Fu Brewing, so you kept it low, right? And similarly, when you pour here, you don't want to pour with too much altitude, right? And it's also important, I was about to say, it's also important that you make sure that people get an even amount, right? Because if you pour into this one now, go for it.
That part. It's fine, as long as I've got in my teapot.
Yeah, exactly. That's selfish. So that would be considered not very good for a guest, right? But
as a host, I'd just swap these around.
I know, but still, the point is trying to even it out.
Okay. Fine.
Right, now you would serve, right? So you can either serve just by picking it up and rubbing on your cloth and then serving like that. Right?
Do I put my cloth higher just to...
You can. A lot of times there should be a bit of space. Okay. Normally, if you have a bit of space, you would have it here and you would just take it, rub it and serve, right? Okay. So serve yourself. Okay. Now you go underneath at the bottom, right at the bottom and then lift up. Yeah, there you go. Wipe. You just gentle wipe and then onto your coaster. You got a coaster there.
Oh, coaster, yeah.
And I'm just going to take mine because I don't want you to cross over to me. Okay? Okay.
And wait 10 minutes for that to happen.
No, it's fine. Okay, so that's it. You've done your first brew.
Okay.
And now we do the, well, you should really do eyes liquor. So you could have looked at the liquor. Remember I said that looks quite strong. So that's that's the next step in the 10-step tasting is taking a look at the color of the liquor. And that will give you some insight as to how you brewed, you know. Like I said, that looks strong. I'm expecting this to be a little bit punchy.
But it's not supposed to be the first one. It's supposed to be very strong.
It's up to you how you want to brew your tea, right? Okay, cheers everybody. Cheers. Halter's first Gong Fu Raw Peach Orchid. I really like it, even though it's got that oomph at the end. It's got a little bit of bitterness, but a lot of aroma. Yeah, just bursting with stone fruits and orchids and all sorts of greatness. But as I said, we're not going to talk about tasting notes in this. And the finish is great. So now what we're doing is the next step in our 10-step tasting is the texture of the tea, mouth texture. The taste of the tea, mouth taste, the finish of the tea, how it leaves your mouth in terms of dryness, in terms of any sort of lingering aromas, right? And then finally, once you've finished your cup, the next step is the nose empty cup. So you're smelling the empty cup.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize you can do that.
Yeah, and you get a lot of information about the tea. There, a lot more of the warmth and the sweetness comes out on there. And you can smell the Gong Dao Bei as well, but that's considered maybe a little less polite because you're sticking your nose in something. And that's it. You've done a Gong Fu brew. Now, you would then repeat that process. Okay. So you would take the cups back. Oftentimes, it's kind of, it looks a bit precarious, but actually it's not. It feels quite nice. Yeah. Oftentimes people, most of the time, would just put their cup back on the tray. Okay. So you wouldn't have to start collecting it all. Your job as a brewer is to produce great Gong Dao Bei's worth of tea. So let's brew another infusion. Yeah. So, it should still be about the right temperature. Right. So pick up the lid. Yeah. Pour from a nice height. Lid on.
And wait. Now wait, what, 25 seconds?
I would do relatively short. I would say that it's probably ready in about 5 or 10 seconds because you didn't put that much water. It's not right up to the top. So it's quite concentrated in there. So I'd say about now. Okay.
It's hard trying to find that.
Yeah, but once you get used to it, it becomes really sort of natural. Yep. There you go. Lid off. Perfect. And you know, during the session, you can obviously always look at the leaf as well. This is the purpose of this, right? So you can sort of move the leaves around and you can sort of see the quality of the leaves. You can see how the color of the leaf is changing. You know, all of that tea appreciation is also part of it. And that's the next step in our 10-step tasting, which is eyes wet leaf. So as it brews, you're going to see how it unfurls. You're going to see the color change. It's gone from a much more sort of plummy brown to a sort of khaki green color, right? So it's becoming enlivened and hydrated.
Do you smell it again at this point as
Always be smelling. That's the joy of a Gai One, is that you've got this big aperture for you to sort of smell. When you have pots, they've small apertures. That's why people love to brew with Gai Ones. I call it sort of the lightsaber of the Gong Fu Jedi. It's like it's essential. Like the pots are lovely and they have their own character and beauty, but Gai Ones are an essential, which is why I got you to practice on a Gai One.
So nice.
Yeah, it's very special tea. High Mountain Dong, Raw Peach Orchid.
Why do you cover half of that? Did you cover? it when you smelt it.
No, maybe I'm just sort of directing the air.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times what people will do is they'll smell the lid.
Right.
So they'll do this, and you can get some aroma, but not as much, and then bring the leaf in so they sort of cover like this. It sort of depends on how formal or informal. Some people don't like seeing everyone stick their nose in the leaves.
Yeah.
But like I don't have a problem with that.
Should we do the Taiwan thingy?
We can, sure.
Yeah.
I'll go grab that one. You want to see that in action?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do that. So you can, instead of serving in here, you would fill up that.
I'd fill this up.
Yeah, not right to the top, but quite high up. And then cap it with the lid, the cup, sorry. And now you sort of want to use 2 fingers, no, the other way. 2 fingers going in and grabbing on top, and then flip.
Quickly?
It doesn't have to be quick, just as long as you sort of, and then use your other hand, put it down. Okay. And now you can just slowly lift that up. Blub, 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 blub.
That's cool.
And then you can smell that. And that's essentially the same as smelling the empty cup that we were doing afterwards, right?
Does the smell go past very quickly, or can you still smell it?
I can still smell it. I am not a huge fan of these. I don't think that they're necessary.
Yeah.
Some people really love them. I think that it sort of has a sort of artistry about it, the whole flip and thing, but I'm not, I rarely use a smelling cup myself, but you know, to each their own. All right, can I have some tea?
Yes, you may. Oh.
You can...
So I'll pour it more evenly now. Oh.
Thank you, still goes. Cheers, everybody. Delicious. Delicious tea.
Oh, it's lovely.
So your first Gong Fu session, I think, is a great success.
Yeah.
Because
There's a lot
the
of
most
water,
important
but
thing
it's
is the most important thing is the tea tasting great,
Yeah.
right? And that's it. You would then keep reinfusing, keep rebrewing. The last step in our 10-step tasting is the body sensation, so how it makes you feel. But that takes a few infusions, and you'll talk about that with your guest, or you'll sort of note it if you're drinking by yourself. So you can keep infusing that, right? And you don't have to rush. You can leave that. Those leaves are perfectly happy. You could leave it an hour and come back. And
how many times can I infuse that?
Depends on the tea, and essentially you'll get to know that. For this one, you would be able to infuse it at least 8 to 10 times, right? And if you are leaving it for longer than say 2 or 3 hours, then I would recommend that you give it a quick rinse first. So that
with
rinse
cold
phase,
or hot water?
with hot water. So that rinse that you did at the beginning, do that again. In China, they say you need to like warm up before you do exercise. And so if it's cold leaves, and they need to warm up again. And that's it. That is how you do Gong Fu style. Obviously, at the end, you would clear down, right? I tend to, and a lot of people out there tend to sort of neglect this, and then they go to bed and then they come back and they've just got all this set up. You know, clear down, it's a good practice to do. There will tea stains quite badly if it's left in there. If you do have tea stains, not a problem. We've done a video on how to clean tea stains, super simple. You just bicarb of soda and citric acid, it's just gone.
Amazing.
But, you know.
And then so you get rid of the leaves. I always feel quite sad to be getting rid of those leaves at the end of it.
Well, so normally at the end of the session, you would take that tea scoop. And you would basically sort of give the honor to the leaf. It's like, okay, the leaf is done. Everyone can look at the leaf, and then that's it. One of the sort of symbolic aspects of Gong Fu Brewing is the fact that you are doing this sort of birth to death of the leaf, this sort of rebirth, and then experiencing it, and then it sort of gives up all of its essence and all of its flavor, and then it's finished. And there are sort of, that symbolism is part of the acceptance of impermanence in life, and that everyone is going to pass away, and that we're all sort of, you know, on this in this journey to have this, you know, these beautiful moments.
Like Aya just coming into it.
Oh, our little girl is coming. Hello. Come in and say hi. That's it. Do you have any questions? Do you want some tea?
Hello.
You've got a messy face. Do you want some tea? What have you eaten?
You're going to have some tea with us?
You can have some of this tea, okay? Halter's tea. Any questions, Halter?
Delicious.
Nice? Is it good?
Is it nice? Yeah.
Yeah, good.
No questions. So get rid of this and then clean everything else.
Yeah.
This is my
And
favorite
you can have the
too.
waste bowl. You can have the waste bowl. Like you could put the leaves in the waste bowl if you wanted, and then you could brew another tea.
Okay.
You can have multiple teas on the go at the same time.
Yeah.
You can do lots of things. Anyway, that's the step-by-step on how to do Gong Fu brewing. I hope that it's useful to you. And as I said, add your own flourishes. These are not fixed rules. You know, make it your own. But the most important thing is making the best tea possible. All right, Halter, I will see you at the next episode where we're going to be bracing that sticky subject of tasting notes.
Oh, God.
That's it, yes. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, this is Halter, this is Ayana, and I'm John from Mayleaf. Thank you for being part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.
Bye.